All right, we're 4 minutes out, so I'll go ahead and start letting people in.
That's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and start the meeting.
Okay, well, I think it started. I started the recording, started the stream, or you mean on Board Docs?
Yes,
Okay, great. Thank you.
no problem. Good evening. Can you hear me, Ishmael?
Good evening. Yes, I was
Okay.
trying to pull up my screen to mute. Good evening. How you
All
doing, Yvonne?
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. And as everybody's probably aware, the SAB is running a little late in closed session. So thank you for your patience. Once they emerge from closed session, then we will begin open session.
Good evening, everyone, and we thank you for your patience. With this being the sole board meeting for the month of December, there was quite a bit to discuss. So we thank you for joining us. I'd like to call our open session meeting for December 14th to order. Shay, can I get a roll call vote? Mhm.
Dr. Beckwith,
Present.
Dr. Yvonne Elliott,
Present.
and Mrs. Mauro Rio.
And Mr. Jones is joining us by.
Right.
And Mr. Jones has joined us by Zoom.
Here.
Okay. I just want to inform the board before we approve the agenda that Mary Oswald is excused for the meeting tonight.
I move that you be excused.
Thank you. May I now have an approval of the agenda?
So move.
Is there a second? Thank you. Moved in second. We will now move to Riverview Garden Excellence.
Good evening, Special Administrative Board
evening.
members. Dr. Pruitt Adams, colleagues, and community. Tonight, we would like to recognize Westview Middle School, the scholars and the staffs at Westview Middle. The reason being is Westview was recognized as a top growth middle school in mathematics by St. Louis University's Prime Center. And what that acknowledgement means is that out of 504 eligible middle schools in Missouri, Westview was ranked 18th with a prime growth score of 89.0 in the report. And so that report, they like to chart growth as opposed to just numbers. And Westview Middle School is showing excellent growth. So we just wanted to recognize those scholars, recognize those teachers, those staff members who've been working hard to attain that growth. And we'd like to see that trajectory continue. Are there any questions?
No. Congratulations to Westview.
Yes, and you see the report there is also loaded there into Board Doc, so you can read that entire report.
To the staff, the teachers, the students, everyone that's at Westview, 18th sounds pretty good to me. So congratulations on that achievement. Thank you, Ishmael.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We will now move to announcements.
I have none.
You have any announcements? Okay. I have no announcements. Shay, do we have any patrons that wish to speak before the board?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. We will then now move to our superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay. I'm pleased to present my report tonight. I have been working with Ms. Janet Silly from the Missouri School Boards Association planning for the Region 7 meeting that will be hosted here in Riverview Garden School District. Somebody's microphone. The Riverview Garden School District on March the 28th of 2022. Also, in collaboration with my leadership team, we have reviewed the Riverview Garden School District Return to School plan that is being presented to our SAB this evening. Also, you should have received a letter indicating that the district leadership team and I will host a new view in the horizon. And joining me tomorrow will be our board president, Ms. Maura Real, as we address our staff around the things that are happening in our district and how we move forward from here. Today, I had the opportunity of meeting with the principal, the central office staff. Tomorrow morning, we will start at Gibson Elementary, and our comments will be live streamed to all of our elementary schools, middle school, and high school. And then tomorrow afternoon, we'll be at the high school. Also, I had the opportunity today to participate in the superintendent's meeting where we covered ESSER compliance, components of the COVID revised plan, improving teaching, and restorative justice. I also want to thank Ms. May, principal at the high school, for being such a gracious host today. Also, just a reminder that Cove Elementary will have their winter concert tomorrow at 5 o'clock. It is virtual, and the link should be on our website. That concludes my report.
Something happened here. You unplugged now.
For the superintendent's report. We now move to item 7 on the agenda, which is items for information. And we're going to start with the CARES, ACT, ESSER spending.
Good evening to our special administrative board. Good evening, special administrative board, Dr. Pruitt Adams, colleagues and community. On tonight, I will present the CARES Act ESSER 1 spending report. Basically, that summarizes what the Riverview Garden School District has spent their ESSER 1 funds on. Shay, will you open up the presentation, please? Thank you. Second slide, yes. So initially, the Riverview Garden School District was awarded $2.8 million, as you can see here, in ESSER 1 funds. ESSER 1 funds was the federal government's first attempt at trying to curtail the COVID-19 outbreak in schools. And so ESSER 1 funds are designed to react to or respond to COVID-19 measures. So our school district received $2.8 million when the pandemic first started back in March of 2020. Of that, 72,000 went to non-publics, leaving Riverview Garden School District with about $2.7 million to spend during the performance period as indicated below, March 13th, 2020 through September the 30th, 2021. The presentation tonight will really focus on the yellow areas. Those are our expenditures since COVID-19 began related to ESSER 1. So you'll hear me relate to the $2.1 million in yellow. You'll hear me refer back to the $98,000 in yellow under the expenditure category. And then you'll hear me talk more about the $520,000 in remaining encumbrances, also in yellow. Next slide, please. Starting with the $2.81 million, the Riverview Garden School District spent these funds accordingly. So about $291,000 was spent on other professional services. Our technology department was very instrumental in securing hotspots for internet accesses for our students. During the beginning phases of the outbreak, we spent a number of dollars on sanitation services, having to have buildings, central office, and other locations sanitized when there were suspected cases of COVID. And also, we also spent money in this line item on meal distribution. One of the things that we did during the pandemic was deliver food meals to our scholars at their bus stops. And so that also incorporated a lot of the $291,000 spent in the other professional services line item. The next line item of $115,000 was spent on general supplies. So the school district bought PPE, face masks, shields, microband, thermometers. The list is inclusive but not limited to the items as you see on the screen. One of the biggest expenses of ESSER 1 was to bring our school district in line with one-to-one. So we spent about $1.1 million on Chromebooks for students, and also we had to spend money on laptops for staff. The Chromebooks were for students to do virtual learning, and the laptops was for our staff in order to teach the virtual scholars. So that's where a big pocket of money went in terms of technology. Also of this $2.1 million, we spent a little bit on advertising, roughly $5,900. About $500,000 or more was spent on staffing services. ESS has played an integral role in making sure that we have substitute teachers in our classrooms, and about $18,000 on regular equipment, air purifiers, air scrubbers, I apologize, for all of our schools. And these were all monies that were spent in the first fiscal year, FY21, which is last year. One remaining item, about $37,000. I mentioned the non-publics got about $70,000 of this money. About half of that money went to Promethean boards and stands that we purchased for the non-publics. So that really summarizes the $2.1 million. And now the next slide will focus on the $98,000 that we spent in the current fiscal year. So about $98,000 spent in the current fiscal year, FY22. We did some mold remediation. We had to do some things over at Central Middle, also vent cleaning. We bought some additional supplies, PPE, face shields, masks, thermometers. Again, very inclusive, but it's not limited to these PPE items and supplies. The next slide. Next slide, we also did some additional advertising We have done job fairs, and so we've done a lot of advertising, you will see, to promote our job fairs and to assist with recruiting qualified, certified and uncertified staff. Also, about another $24,000 was spent on plumbing supplies, carpets, those kinds of items were an additional expenditure from our ESSER 1 funds. Next slide, please. The encumbrance items. I want to speak very quickly to the encumbrances of $520,000. And an encumbrance is an obligation that has not been fully paid yet. Okay, we've obligated ourselves to the purchase, and once the items have been shown receipt and we've got the proper invoices and we can do the three-way match, then we can pay these encumbrances. So right now we've got about $520,000 in bills that are outstanding, ready to be paid. Once we know that the items, these items that I'm going to speak about, have been received in the school district. So again, another $154,000 on hotspots. We had to make sure that we're prepared and our students have the internet capabilities if we were to go out due to COVID. A real small amount, $1,400 on general supplies. And again, another $356,000 on Chromebooks. This time we bought cases and Google licenses for the last set of Chromebooks that we purchased. Next slide, please. We did some more advertising this year, about $2,400. And then we also used some additional dollars to purchase some equipment, some plumbing supplies, to do some carpet restorations, things of that nature. Okay, next slide. So to summarize where the Riverview Gardens School District spent our ESSER 1 monies, again, $2.8 million was the award. We received about 75% of this allocation up front. So the district was advanced $2.1 million. In FY21, we spent $2.1 million. In FY22, the current fiscal year, we have actually spent and paid about an additional $98,000. In encumbered expenses, we still have about $520,000 sitting out there. And I've been in contact with technology as late as today to make sure that they have receipted those items so that we can move forward in paying those invoices and also drawing down our final payment in ESSER 1 funds. So our total expenses is about $2.8 million, which is very close to what we were awarded. Chair, if you can go down just a little bit, because I want to make sure the SAB is aware that there was about $1,600 that we were unable to spend. Out of a full $2.8 million, about $1,600 will go unspent. In this particular instances, when dollars go unspent, it could be for several reasons. It could be that the original purchase order had been closed and we didn't receive items. Therefore, there was not time to reallocate those funds, and a number of reasons. So again, I want to just make sure that everyone is aware that that of the $2.8 million, there is about $1,600 that will go unspent. Okay, and that concludes my presentation on ESSER 1. Are there any questions for me at this time?
Yes, Dr. Singleton, how are you?
Hey, Dr. Von Elliott, I'm good. How are you?
Just for clarification, what was the deadline? So we missed the deadline, or can we still do something?
No, so the deadline was September the 30th. So after September the 30th, you're not allowed to make any new purchases. You are allowed to pay any remaining outstanding encumbrances, and that's the $520,000 that I spoke to, but you're not able to make any new purchases. And so, yes, so unfortunately, we'll have $1,600. It's not that we have to send those monies back. It'll just be when we request for reimbursement, it will be for $1,600 less than the difference of what they've already sent us.
Okay,
So we
that's
have
fine.
missed the deadline at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Dr. Singleton, thank you for compiling this report at my request. It's a good report. One question, Did the non-public spend all of their money? And if they didn't, does that money roll over to us?
Generally speaking, yes, sir, Dr. Beckwith. So to answer your first question, I believe the non-public spent roughly half of their monies. And again, I think we saw about $37,000 on Promethean boards and stands, which was the request of the non-publics. When the non-publics do not use their funds, those remaining monies go to the LEA, which is the school district, the local education agency. And so of those remaining funds, those monies did and would have gone in Riverview Garden School District office.
Thank you.
Dr. Singleton, I appreciate the work that you've done with this report, but I would like to see a more itemized list of the items that you had on here.
Okay.
I would just like to see it. That's my statement for that.
Okay, not a problem, Ms. Morrill. I will work towards getting you that. It may be in that second tab. Shay, can you put that second tab for me real fast in there? That may be what you're hinting at, Ms. Morrill, but we can certainly talk offline.
No, that's exactly what I was looking for. That's exactly what I was looking for. And I apologize, I hadn't looked at that one.
No problem. So read it, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to explain, okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We will now move to item B, which is special education program evaluation for 2021-2022.
Good evening, SAB members, Madam Superintendent. We will be presenting Chad Lent. Actually, Dr. Lent is on the call, and he will be presenting the program evaluation for the special school district. Dr. Lent.
Hey, good evening, Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt-Adams, and community. I am Chad Lent. I'm the Director of Special Ed with Special School District, and I will be presenting the Special Ed program evaluation. We do this in December, but some of the data that I have is historical data. It is from last school year. I have a little bit of smattering of this school year in this data also. Given that we have a few new board members, I thought it would be a good idea to just give a few facts about Special School District. We've been around since 1957. 1 in 6 students receive special ed services or technical education from SSD. And we service all special ed services in St. Louis County. So all 22 districts, all 256 schools, we provide the special ed services. And the majority of our students that do receive services do receive that in their home school. For us to provide services, students would have one of the 14 different disabilities. These are the ones that are recognized by the state of Missouri. Along with our special ed services, we also provide a wealth of related services. And you can see that list there. These are essentially services that we provide in order for students to actually benefit from their special ed services. So the last time I presented, since then, we've had a few changes as far as staffing is concerned. One of the things the Special School District has wanted to do this past year was to have a focus on instruction. With that, what they did is add some additional director positions. And so I'm full-time in Riverview now. I was split between Riverview and Jennings prior. We've also added 2 instructional coaches that are here full-time. Previously, we had 1 person that was here part-time. And so now we have 2 people who are here full-time. They actually have their office embedded in Riverview, and they're spending a lot of time with our teachers. We also have a comprehensive early intervening services team that's been added. That is 1 social worker, 1 school psychologist, and a speech language pathologist. And they're working with our schools to support multi-tiered systems of supports. So I wanted to just share the enrollment for our students with disabilities. You can see a trend here as far as where it's been for the last few years. From last year, December 1 to this year, December 1, we really didn't change too much. We only changed 3 students. You can see the percentages. Most of the students that do receive services are male. And then this actually has a 4-year trend. So this is looking at it from the actual disabilities. So you have 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, then 2021. This is the actual student count, is this blue line. The green one is the percentage of students that have that disability in comparison to the population of students with disability. So 13.36% of our students with disability in Riverview have been identified as having an intellectual disability. This other column here is the percentage of students in comparison to the total population in Riverview. And so this is nice to have because then you can compare it to the state percentages, and you can see that we are a bit disproportionate in our students with intellectual disability, emotional disturbance, things like specific learning disability. We're actually over-identifying probably. And you can see our overall percentage as far as our child count, we're just under 16% of our students are receiving services right now. So as far as our goals and objectives last year, we have 3 big areas that we have to work towards. One is our federal annual determination, which looks at basically whether or not we're meeting the requirements of IDEA. And then we have the state performance plan, which has some specific targets that they expect us to meet. And then we also have our local plan. This is our SSD CSIP plan. This is based, again, this was last year. We had 3 major strategies. Essentially, we were looking at literacy, numeracy, and the social behavioral wellness of our students. When it comes to the federal program effectiveness, you can see that basically this last school year, or last July, looking at the previous school year, they did say that we did meet the requirements and purposes of implementing the IDEA. You can see that the assessment and the assessment performance, participation and performance are zeros. And that's because that data is from the 2020 school year where we didn't have that data. So this is the state, this is a summary of the state performance plan that they, with the targets that they have given us. So there's a few different areas that we did not meet their target. I'm going to actually go through each of those really quick. So the first one is our educational environment, also known as our least restrictive environment. And there's 2 different categories that they look at. One is what our percentage of students that are in the gen ed that receive services 80% or more of the day. And then also how many of those, what percentage of those students receive, go to gen ed less than 40%. And you can see that we have 54.3% of our students with services in the gen ed 80% or more. The target is 57.8. So we did fall short of that. And then also the group of would be considered probably the most restrictive. We are 13.4%, and they want us below 9%. So I wanted to just show you where that's coming from as far as individual schools. We do have 3 essentially self-contained AU program at Glasgow. We also have a couple functional programs at Meadows. So those 2 schools have higher levels of students in special ed, a much higher time. And then our 2 middle schools are also, we have our students in special ed a bit more in the 2 middle schools. The MAP proficiency rates is another area that we did not meet the target. If we look at the students with IEPs, grades 3 through 8 on the English language arts, only 2.3% of our students with IEPs were in that advanced and proficient, and only 0.7% were in for mathematics. I wanted to show a 3-year trend as far as students with IEPs. You can see that we did actually perform about the same as we did in 2019. And with students with IEPs, we did see a little bit of a drop. This is the drop that's been seen with our gen ed students, our total population. But I will make an argument that this is probably not the most sensitive measure as far as looking at what's actually occurring. I'm going to show some growth data, which is interesting that the prime report came out about Westview. So I'll jump back to that in a second. A couple of the other pieces that are reported in our state performance report, and this is only occurs every 3 years, and this is when we are supposed to do our special education tiered monitoring. So 3 of the things that we look at is initial evaluation timelines. Unfortunately, we were out of compliance on that this year or this last year, and it really just came down to one factor, and that was the pandemic. We just were not able to get kids in and do the testing in a timely manner, and that has not been us historically. We have been in compliance in that area historically. We also look at doing a parent survey, and then we also do a file review. And so again, just looking at the evaluation timelines, only 84.6% were within the 60-day timeline. But I do want to show that, in 2017-18, we were 100%. I believe we would have been 100% on this one this year had it not been for that pandemic. In regards to the parent survey, basically there's multiple questions. These are the actual questions that are asked. And then we get those results back from the state. We don't ever see the individual ones, but one of the things I do want to point out is that when we went through this in 2017-18, we really only had 41 responses. This year, we really pushed, Dr. Patton and I really pushed for getting additional surveys completed. We had 178, which is a pretty good turnout for that. Unfortunately, our numbers of parents who agree that that they're involved in their child's education when it comes to special ed services really has not improved. And that is going to be an area that we're going to work on in the next couple of years. So with the special ed tiered monitoring, 1/3 piece that isn't actually in that state report, but it is an important piece is the file review. And we submit multiple files. We do a self-assessment and submit those files. Destiny reviews those. And Riverview Gardens was found to have 0 indicators out of compliance. I believe in St. Louis County, we were the only district that was found to have 0 indicators out of compliance. So really proud of our staff for those. As far as program effectiveness, when we look at those local data pieces, we have 2 big pieces that we're going to be looking at, and that's Fastbridge Screening. We're going to continue to use Fastbridge. It's a progress monitoring and a screening tool that we can use for literacy and math. And then I'm going to share a little bit about the MAP NCE growth to show kind of where we've been. So with the Fastbridge data, it's grades 2 through 8. We're looking at reading. Any student who has a reading and or a math goal, we screen those in those areas. We use a program. It's the assessment is actually A reading and A math. It's an adaptive assessment, but it also gives you percentiles at the grade level. So one of the goals is what we had was to screen at least 80%. For A reading, we were able to screen 87%. For math, it was 84%. And when I looked at the actual numbers, what it came down to, why we didn't have 100% is it's because of our functional programs. The students were a little bit too low to be screened on a 2nd grade or higher grade level. And I think, that is the biggest factor for that. It has nothing to do with compliance or anything like that. We really did screen everybody that we could have. So what I wanted to show here is Riverview Gardens in comparison to St. Louis County. And this is the median national percentile from fall of 2019 to fall of 2020. And the reason I don't have fall of 2020 on here is that it really looked like it's an anomaly. We saw some really anomalous scores in the fall of 2020. So to get a better comparison of what has happened since the pandemic, I'm looking at the median national percentile from 2019 to 2021. You can see here in Riverview, we did drop for A reading. We dropped 2%. Oh, sorry, hit the wrong button. And then in math, we stayed about the same. This is St. Louis County. They also dropped as an aggregate 2%. And then in math, they dropped 1%. And I know Dr. Beckwith is always interested in how we're doing in comparison to other districts. And so this is looking at all the districts in St. Louis County, and it also has the county average at the bottom. And this just shows where the percentile was for fall of 2019 to the fall of 2021. This is reading and this is math. And so you can see basically how other districts might have dropped considerably, maybe started out a little bit higher, dropped considerably in comparison to what Riverview Gardens has happened. So one of the other pieces that we can look at with the Fastbridge data is it gives us growth data. It looks at in comparison to a student at the same, all students at one particular percentile, and see how much they actually grow between 2 periods. And so this is the median and the average growth from fall to winter. And I wanted to disaggregate this just a little bit because I think it's important. When we're looking at the reading growth, when we look at students who have only been here 1 year in Riverview, we're looking at 31 percentile as a median or 39th percentile for growth as an average. But when they're here 2 years, we do see those numbers come up. And then in math, we actually see those numbers come up pretty good. And so one of the walkaways that I have from this data is if we have students in our district for more than 2 years, at least more than a year, we can start to see some pretty good growth, at least on this particular measure. The other measure that I wanted to share with you is the MAP growth data. This is looking at data from 2019 to 2021, because 2020 we didn't have that data. What this data is they take all of the raw scores of how students do on the MAP, they convert them into a standard score, a normal curve equivalent, and they give everybody the mean is a 50. So if a student goes from a 50 one year to a positive 50 the next year, that shows growth. If there's a negative, that means that there was a decline. So there's two pieces of data. One that I'm going to show you is the difference between the 2 years on the NCE, the change. And then there's another one called the residual. And the residual is not looking at just the 2019 to 2021. It's looking at 2021 in comparison to the predicted score based on Missouri's growth model. And so if you're familiar with Missouri's growth model, they look at multiple variables to predict how well a child should do. And then what we can show is, did our students grow in comparison to that? So that's that residual. So this is the NCE average change, the normal curve equivalent average change for by IEP status. So the green is students with IEPs. The black is students, the black color is the students without disabilities. And then the gold is the combination of those two things. And so what we can see in Comm Arts, students with IEPs from 2021 in comparison to 2019, we had an average growth of 1.22, whereas the total population was a negative 2.14. You can see the kind of the growth that we've had in the last few years here. Unfortunately, math is not as positive. We did have some growth in the past few years with math. We did see a drop in a pretty good loss as far as an average NCE score drop. We had a negative 6.45 for students with IEPs and a negative 7.97 with the gold, or with the total population. If you're interested, this is the same information, but it's broken down by the individual schools. We did have some individual schools that really did perform well with our students with IEPs. This is in Comm Arts. And then this is math. And so you can see that as a whole, we really did not show very good increases as far as the NCE score is concerned. So this is the percentage of students who had growth based on that residual. So the current score versus the predicted, what is the percentage of students that actually showed a positive growth? And so in the district, you can see that 46.2% of the students in Comm Arts showed a growth in comparison from that current to that predicted. For students with IEPs, the total population had 44%. And then you can see individual schools, what percentage of those students showed growth from that current to predicted residual. This is math. You can see the numbers overall are a little bit more depressed as a whole. So additionally, so those three big areas that we were looking at as far as the SSD CSIP is that math and literacy. I went over those. We also are looking at the social emotional. So this gets a little bit complicated in that we really had very few removals last year, in part because of the pandemic. And so one of the things that DESE was not able to do for us is basically give us how we are doing in comparison to where we should be. So one of the things that with the social emotional, we're looking at that discipline data. Riverview Gardens has been identified as being significantly disproportionate in how we suspend students with IEPs who are also Black in comparison to the state average for students with IEPs who are not Black. And so they look at it from a couple of different categorical areas. One is the number of students with 10 or less suspension days, and then the number of students with 11 or more. And if we have a risk ratio, which means a risk ratio of over 3.55, if the students with IEPs who are Black in Riverview Gardens are 3.5 times more likely to receive an out-of-school suspension in comparison to the alternative risk ratio, then we would be identified as being significantly disproportionate. So one of the things I was not able to produce for you guys for the board last year was the 2019-20 data. That I've been able to put that in there. You can see where we were at that point. And again, unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately, there were not very many removals last year. And so DESE did not even calculate a risk ratio for us. So one of the things that occurs because we are significantly disproportionate is that we are required to spend we are required to spend 15% of our early intervening services money. And that money does come from special school district. So I just wanted to show real quickly where some of that money has gone. This is special school district early intervening services money. This is the money that we spent last year. We spent quite a bit of money supporting our summer school program at Gibson. We had some other non-personnel costs. This year, we've really pushed the limit, and I appreciate Dr. Patton for taking on a lot of that. We've been asking for a lot of supports and a lot of money from special, and they've been really good to us, and they continue to support us in any way possible. So we're paying for our professional development, a couple of RTI coaches. We've purchased some second steps curriculum. We've had some professional development. So I just wanted to share that with you. So as far as opportunities and next steps, we're really going to continue to work on that focus on instruction. We're going to have ongoing coaching with all of our teachers. One of the things our instructional coaches are able to do now is to actually support our veteran teachers also. So all of our veteran teachers and new teachers are going through coaching cycles. We're going to continue to work with special school district in the areas of social emotional behavior and autism. They've increased the number of effective practice specialists that they have. We did order some smart displays and carts. They should be arriving in the first couple of weeks in January, so we're excited about that. We've started doing a monthly newsletter, and we're looking to support Riverview Gardens summer programs again this coming school year. So the board for special school district really is supportive of wanting to make sure that all students are able to participate in the summer programs. And so they're offering staffing and other supports for Riverview Gardens and other districts. And so that would be no cost to Riverview Gardens, but we could potentially use SSD staff to help staff some of the Riverview Gardens summer programs. And then as a result of some of our math data that I shared, we are looking at adding some math curricular supports at the elementary level. All right, that's that. Is there any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. I had a question. When it comes to the students that are outside or inside of the classroom 80% of the time, are they in modified classes? Is that the resource? I was just wondering what program they were in when they weren't in the regular classroom.
Yeah,
so I'll have my follow-up question after that.
Yeah, so any student that's in the gen ed setting, whether it's a co-teaching model or not, if there's other students who do not have IEPs, it's considered a gen ed setting. So for the most part, they're going to be in either fully gen ed or they're going to be in a co-teaching situation.
Okay, so those are the only two models that's being used here outside of when they go to outside services.
So it's not the only ones. There's also, so that was just for the gen ed side piece of it. So that for that data, we also have modified courses or parallel courses at the secondary level. And those are in those core academic areas. We also have a few functional programs, which are not necessarily fully self-contained, but they're very close to being self-contained. We do try to have our students, even in our functional programs, be in the gen ed with their peers as much as we can, whether that be, morning meetings or, recess specials and things like that.
So that's why I was asking. So for the teachers, because they're not content area experts, what type of professional development do they normally receive in order to be effective in implementing the modified curriculum or even the functional?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. At the secondary level, we participate in the department PLCs. We participate in the Riverview Gardens professional development. We have instructional coaches, and we also have a literacy coach and a math coach. And they've been providing a lot of guidance around the scope and sequence and the curriculum, helping to support them. But a big part of that is collaborating with their gen ed teachers. And so they're working through those lessons at a similar pace, trying, making sure that we're working through the gen ed curriculum.
Vic, what did you
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Thank you.
recognize Mr. Jones?
Okay, Dr. Lynn, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Got a quick question for you. If I saw the data correctly, it looks like there was no substantial increase in services since you've been in this pandemic. Is that true?
I would say that's probably accurate. We have, let's see. I think you're talking about the LRE data. Well, let's see. Yeah, I missed it. Sorry. Here we go. So are you referring to this slide?
The one before that, I believe. When it showed year by year, the number of students were.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this one here. So this is really just whether or not a student has been identified with one of those disabilities. This is not really necessarily a measure of the amount of services that students have received. If you're interested in that data, I can get that to you very quickly to show basically the average number of minutes that we've been providing in special ed setting, in the gen ed setting. I can disaggregate.
Well, I'm also looking at year to year, like the last couple of years, but are the differences of services.
If you're looking at the number of services, the amount of services, like the total numbers of minutes, I can get that to you. I can get 3-4 year trend if that's what you need.
Numbers, I'm talking number of students.
So that's what this is. Yeah, so that's the number of students.
Okay.
I can get you a raw count for each of these. I didn't want to overwhelm you with too many numbers.
Okay.
But yeah, I can get you for sure the numbers of students here.
All right, thanks.
Dr. Lent,
Yes.
first a comment. I always appreciate your presentations because you satisfy what I call the so what factor. Okay, here's the data, but it shows that we meet our expectations or our goals or did we not? Two questions. Most of our students receiving services are males. Is that comparable to other districts, below, more than other districts, or below or about the same?
I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe it's very similar to other districts. For the most part, when you look at, nationally, boys tend to be over-identified in comparison to their female counterparts.
And the second, 16% of our students receive SSD services. Is that about on average for county school districts, or are we over or under?
We are over-identifying. If that's how, that would be one way of interpreting it. We are over-identifying students with disabilities. The county average, I would say, is pretty close to the state average, which is at 13.5%.
Okay. Thank you. No other questions.
The questions that I have for you have to do with the disproportionality updates that you gave. Riverview, I believe, is considered, I know that at the governing council meeting, they spoke about tiers. Can you elaborate a little bit about tiers and how that applies to this disproportionality update that you gave us?
Yeah, so in St. Louis County, so what the state has done with a significant disproportionality when it comes to the suspension rates, there's also a disproportionality in identification of students who are Black. We are a contributor to that, and that actually comes down to this 2.7% in comparison to the 1% at the state for intellectual disability. So we are a contributor for that. We're not actually significant disproportionate in that area here in Riverview. But with the discipline, we are significantly disproportionate. So one of the things that SSD has done is looked at the districts who are significantly disproportionate, and they've tiered us. So because we are significantly disproportionate in that area, they are providing us with more supports than another district who isn't receiving or who hasn't been significantly disproportionate in those areas.
So that figure that you gave, does that just cover one tier, or is that a summary of all the tiers?
So that's the significant disproportionate money that
Okay.
we've received. Actually, the money that we're supposed to get for that, sorry, I'm gonna probably make you sick if you look at this too closely, but let me get to this one here. The 317,000, we're actually only allotted I think closer to 200,000. So we're actually spending quite a bit more money than what was allotted to us based on being a tiered district. So.
Okay, that was my question.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone else have any questions, additional questions? Okay, one more, okay.
I just want to know, do you have any data to support kids who have been exited out of special education over the years?
So you want to know the percentage of students who have been exited, or I can get that. I have it in another dashboard, but I can send that information to you pretty quickly.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that presentation. We will now move to item 8 on our agenda, which is items for discussion. And our first subject to be discussed will be policy recommendations.
Good evening, Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt Adams, colleagues, and community. Tonight, I will be presenting the policy recommendation summary from 2021 CMSBA update for discussion. The first policy is policy BBB, school board elections. As a result of House Bill 271, the following period for election of school board members has been established. For the April 2022 election, the following period began on December 7, 2021, and will end on December 28, 2021. Also, the Missouri Supreme Court found that Senate Bill 592 is unconstitutional. Therefore, MSBA is modifying the policy to match the statutory language that existed prior to the adoption of Senate Bill 592. The recommendation is to adopt the policy as presented by MSBA with no additional changes. Mrs. Shay Fields will provide additional information regarding this policy and answer any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. The additional information that I have to provide is with regard to when the policy update was sent to the district. The district has had the policy update now for over a month. However, it did not move forward until the state board approved the expansion of the board. And that happened on December 7th. So from December 7th to today, we have received 3 candidates who have filed for the River Guard School Board. And they are Dr. Nikita Coleman, Mr. Theo Brown Sr., and Miss Elise Kennedy. And then I also wanted to add that the filing period will end while the district is on holiday break. And so Ms. King and myself will be present here at central office. And we have hours that have been published, which on December the 27th, we'll be here from 10 a.m. to noon to accept any candidates who would like to file. And then we will also conclude the filing on December 28th, and we will be here from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. so that we're in compliance with the statute. Are there any questions?
No.
That's all that I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Fields. The next policy is policy KKB, audio and visual recordings. This policy is being revised to comply with the laws surrounding audio and video recordings. It also gives the superintendent or the designee a right to restrict recordings if the privilege is misused. There's also language, a section that's been added regarding how parents, guardians, and family members are to handle recordings when they are invited to events that are not open to the public, as well as district employees. There's also information regarding the district creating recordings that are for the purposes that are related to furthering the educational needs of the district. And then lastly, parents and legal guardians of students may record audio under IDEA, but those parents or guardians must notify the district at least 24 hours in advance of the meeting. And there are no recordings that will be allowed without consent. It is recommended that the district accept revisions to the audio and visual recording policy KKB as presented. Are there any questions?
No questions.
Thank you.
We will now move to item B, regarding December 2021 COVID-19 protocols for scholars and staff.
Thank you, Ms. Mario. As you recall, on November 23rd, the Missouri Court Judge Green from Cole County issued an order saying that it was unlawful for departments of public health to ensue mask mandates. He added a line that was also specific to school districts. On December 7th, Attorney General Eric Smith also issued a letter of cease and desist to our school districts. And in that letter, he also asked for parents to notify whether school districts were not adhering to the mask, releasing the mask mandate. As a district, we have not received a cease and desist letter at this time. We have gone through the current policy that we have planned and made some critical updates with regards to state statutes. Sorry about that. We are now in compliance with Missouri Revised Statute 160.011, 162.261, 171.011. We will still adhere to the standard mitigations that we have, but there are two that I need to point out. Ms. Fields, if you could go to page 1 of the plan. On page 1 of the plan.
On page 1 of the plan, we made a link to our website so that individuals could easily access the information that is pertinent to our faculty and to our scholars. At the bottom bullet point where it talks about masks have shown to be an effective mitigation. While it was in our original plan that students who were being transported on a bus needed to have assigned seating, by virtue of the new order, it is a mandate requiring that all students wear a mask when on a bus. If you would click to page 2, please. On page 2, under attendance and sickness, we added the link to the new CDC standards as it relates to COVID-19 symptoms. And the last most important change is on page 6. This will be new to our district, but it is in compliance with the new order. And that is the modified exclusion for close contact. That entails that students who are only in a class tied to close contact would have to be removed from school. You don't have to remove all students anymore. There are some school districts at this point in time who are either going with a no mask recommendation, or with mask being optional. At this point in time in Riverview Gardens, we cannot go with the mask optional, nor can we do away with mask wearing. This is due to our inability to have social distancing in all of our classrooms to the maximum time space allotted. What we will also do as a part of the mandate is come back to the Board of Education. It says in here every 20 days. By law, it has to be every 30 days, but we will come every 20 days so that we're in compliance with when the order actually goes into place, which is December 23rd. So our next presentation to the board will be our January 25th meeting, because the plan will not go into place until January the 18th after Martin Luther King birthday. That would allow for the 2 weeks for students, for our scholars and our staff to have returned,
after being out for the winter break. Dr. Patton and I are prepared to answer any questions that you may have.
You have any questions? You have any questions, Dr.? Thank you for that presentation. We will now move to item C, which is the 2021-2022 COVID training and stipend for all.
Good afternoon, good evening, Special Administrative Board again, Superintendent Pruitt Adams, colleagues and community. I will be presenting, once we pull it up on the screen, I will be presenting the information on the 21-22 COVID incentive. Do I need to pull this up myself?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you all could see.
The other slide, Shay, I think there's another attachment. The resolution, yes, okay. All right, so as we know, COVID-19 has had a serious impact on school districts, a very profound impact on how we operate, and just our daily lives in general. Yet our employees continue to come to work, provide supports to our scholars, wraparound services, all kinds of academic engagement. And therefore, our Special Administrative Board, through the use of district funds to be reimbursed by ESSER funds, the proposal tonight is to provide all employees with a $1,000 COVID stipend as a result of taking a COVID training, okay? Now, there are some conditions to the COVID training and to the COVID incentive. First of all employees, this applies to all employees who are hired on or before October 22nd. So that is a very important piece. And I apologize, I did not realize that my camera was off. So it applies to all employees who were hired on or before October 22nd. The training has to be taken. It's a 50-minute training, and it has to be taken during non-work hours, okay? So evenings, weekends, over the Christmas break would be ideal. Let me make sure that I am perfectly clear. It cannot be done on a teacher prep period or any period of the school day during which an employee is already paid, okay? So the training certificates will be date and time stamped. So I encourage those employees, if the SAB approves this, to make sure that they are in compliance with the timing of the training. It has to be done outside of normal business hours. Again, evenings, weekends, and over the Christmas break. All employees are required to show record of compliance. And Ms. Adams Turnipseed and I have worked to put together some information so that there's a portal out there where you can upload your completed certificates once you are done. And again, we have to make sure that we're in compliance with DESE's time and effort reporting guidelines, and we've shared some information about that as well. The total estimated impact to the district will obviously be about $720,000. That includes the $624,000 in the stipend, plus the associated benefits. But we know that all of these funds will be reimbursed by ESSER. Let me say that there has been a lot of coordination with legal on this. The resolution has been vetted through legal. The auditors have also looked at the information and given their input, as well as DESE, okay? And we've also talked to the teachers union. We polled the principals and our employees, and so everybody seems to be on board with this. The training has to be done. The window starts tomorrow, December 15th, and it has to be completed by January the 5th. And the stipend is payable. It's a one-time stipend, which will be included with your regular payroll checks on January the 20th. Okay. So I just wanted to make that pretty clear. This does not apply to SSD staff. Okay. We're talking strictly Riverview Gardens employees, part-time and full-time employees, and neither does it apply to ESS, our long-term substitute teachers. So we're talking about Riverview Gardens School District employees. And again, we have a resolution that's tied to a training, that's tied to a stipend that all employees will receive as a result of completing the training. Are there any questions for me at this time?
Yes, Dr. Singleton, during closed session today, we accepted some resignations of employees. It would appear to me that even though they've taken the training, if they've taken the training, but they're no longer an employee on January 20th, I believe, then they would not be eligible for the $1,000 stipend. Your response on that?
I believe that should be correct, Dr. Beckwith. Now, the training starts tomorrow, and it is to be completed by January the 5th. But however, if employees have resigned during this time period and are not an active employee as of the date that we're paying out the stipend, then no, they would not be eligible to receive the stipend.
Part of my concern is the training is one thing, but the district then expects all employees to implement that training. And if you have resigned prior to implementing the training, prior to January 20th, is that the date, then I would strongly support them not receiving the $1,000 stipend. The second question, for audit purposes, has the district designed a form that employees will submit to say that they have completed the training or what?
Yes, sir. And again, Ms. Tina Adams Turnipseed and I have developed a Google form in which all employees, once you get done, there are 4 modules. Once you get done with each of the training modules, there is a certificate associated with it. I actually went out and did my training today to just test proof the portals. And you can also update or upload your certificates once you're done. So we have gone through the necessary protocols to make sure that there's an audit trail available to answer any questions as it relates to this. So yes, sir, there is a portal that's out there in which employees will be able to upload their certificates for auditing purposes.
Please send me a copy of that document.
We will, sure.
Thank you.
Dr. Thank you.
No other questions.
Dr. Singleton, would it be a problem for there to be an amendment to include that exclusion of those candidates that have retired? Because I can see them saying, well, I did do the training and so forth. So is there a provision for an amendment to include that language on the resolution for the acceptance tonight?
Okay, if that is something that you would like, Dr. Von Elliott, and again, if the case is a retiree, and in fact, I think we were proposed with a question similar to that, that a person retires January the 1st, January 2nd, January the 3rd. It's very different than someone who's resigning and who's not coming back to the district. A person who's retiring January the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, whatever it is, still has a possible last check coming by the 20th of the month. And so again, if you would like to add that provision, I think that once we accept the report, I think that can be added as part of your amendment to include that group of employees.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Maria. Dr. Singleton, I hear Dr. Armand Elliott, and I think Dr. Beckwith's initial comment was also about those who are resigning. not just retired, not so much the retirees, but those who are resigning with an end date of January 4th or January 17th or January 14th, something like that. That's the concern. People who are leaving the district by choice, not by retirement, getting that incentive.
Right. Well noted, Dr. Pruitt-Adams. Are there any additional questions for me? And this item will also come up for action. This is a discussion and action item so that we can get started on this on tomorrow. Thank you to the Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt-Adams, for allowing us to bring this. I think I speak on behalf of all employees in saying thank you and for showing your appreciation by allowing us to take this training. Thank you.
Dr. Singleton, that's $1,000 prior to taxes being taken out, correct?
Absolutely. I tried to make that clear. So that is an additional, that's $1,000 being added to your regular pay. And so it will not be in a separate check, and it will be taxed according to however the taxes are set up. So what we're hoping to avoid is an influx of people trying to change their exemptions, because I just don't see how we can accomplish all of this if that happens. So we may have some pushback on that, but yes, sir. Thank you.
All right.
Madam President, just one last question. What I was going to ask with the modules, is there any type of assessment attached to it to determine knowledge of?
Yes,
Okay.
Dr. Yvonne Elliott, you asked the right questions. And so at the end of each module, I've taken all 4 of them today just to test it out. There is a test your knowledge, and you must pass with a 100%, okay? So let me caution all employees. It is very important that you pay attention, that you take the training very seriously, because you must pass the training with 100%. Now, the flip side of it is you can, if you don't pass it on the first time, there are multiple opportunities to retake the test. So you're not limited there, but you must pass each module with a 100% on the knowledge check questions. So yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Dr. Singleton, would you speak to the allowances or the accommodations we're going to make for the individuals who may not have access to a computer?
Yes, Dr. Pruitt-Adams, thank you for reminding me that. We also, we've spoken with the principals this morning. And so a lot of the principals have agreed that if you have challenges with technology, or if you don't have access to the proper channels to get on computers, then principals have said that they would certainly make their buildings and computers available. But we also want to let you know that here at Central Office, it's important to us as well that everybody gets this stipend, all right? So if there's any challenges with computer access or anything, and you need a workstation here, again, it has to be during off hours. So, you know, if you're off work, you're welcome to come here in Central Office. I'll get with the technology team, and maybe we can set up a few workstations for employees here and throughout the district to be able to take those assessments. So again, Dr. Pruitt-Adams was very adamant that we want everyone to receive this stipend, and we want to minimize any obstacles. So if you don't have computer access, if you have trouble getting internet or computer access over the break, the first couple of days that we get back, we will make accommodations for those employees. And again, I will be responding to email and reading emails over the Christmas break. So if there's any questions, please make me your focal point, make me your point of contact during the break, and I'll be responsive. Thank you.
My question is, most of the questions that I was going to ask have been asked from others, but the one question I wanted to ask that I did not hear you say, you may have said it, the 4 modules, how long are they exactly?
So there are 4 modules. They total 50 minutes total, okay? So one module is 15 minutes. The second module might be 12 minutes, 11 minutes, 12 minutes. I forget the exact breakdown, but they're very short modules. Each one is 15 minutes or less, and the total is about 50 minutes. So if employees can just find 1 hour find a computer that works over the Christmas break. I think that we can assure them that we will make sure that that $1,000 is available to them on January the 20th. So 50 minutes, Ms. Mario.
And there is no restriction on, okay, you have to pass these modules in order. Maybe they do better on the second module than the first, and they can go back and retake the first.
Well, you have to pass each one with 100%. So before you can move forward to the next module, you must have gotten in compliance with the first one. Yes.
Thank you. That was my question.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Reggie.
I have a question, Dr. Singleton, maybe Dr. Pruitt Adams. Is this, would you suggest that maybe the board do this training as well?
The board can do the training, but the board can't get the $1,000.
Yeah, that was my next question. I was just joking about that part.
We don't appreciate jokes like that.
The board will get 2,000. How about that?
Now you're talking.
But I think it may be a good idea for us to, to experience that as well.
Yes.
If the employees are going to do it as well, I think maybe be a good idea for some of us to do that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Mayor Jones. It's some good information about COVID. You can never learn too much about COVID, how it's transmitted, how to keep yourself safe. And so those modules are very informative. I enjoyed the 50 minutes that I spent learning things about COVID-19. So I think you'll enjoy the training. So we will make sure that the Special Administrative Board gets that training. And I want to see certificates of completion for the board members by January the 5th also. That's a challenge to all the board members.
Under whose authorization?
Okay, I give up, Dr. Becker.
Thank you for that information. We will now move on to item D, which is the 2021 through 2022 staffing plan adjustment.
Thank you. The original staffing plan for the 2021 school year was presented to the Board of Education on April 13th, 2021. October 26th, members of the administration brought forth a revised request to add 4 positions. The item was on the consent agenda on November 9th. It was recommended that the item be pulled by members of the board so that as the acting superintendent, I would have the opportunity to review the staffing plan. As a result, I conducted my own research. I did interviews, I read the document, I talked with the assistant superintendent for human resources, as well as the assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction. While I truly believe that the positions that have been proposed, the math coordinator and the science coordinator, in an effort to help align the district curriculum with the state standards and priority standards and services support for teachers is needed. I also agree that the instructional technology coach is needed. As we know now, everything is tied to technology. The technology site resource specialist is also needed. We have a plethora of devices that break down daily, and we really need to get those repaired expediently so that our scholars have the opportunity to continue the work that is laid out for them. However, after reviewing and having my conversations, the only position that I can fully recommend at this time, and the board should have received a copy of that job description in addition to what was in your packet. The only position that I can recommend being filled this school term would be the position of the technology resource person. Reason being, so as I said, they can repair the computers and get them back to the students. The other positions, while I see the value in them and agree that they should be posted, should not be posted with the start date earlier than July 1. While it says in the document that the positions will be posted immediately, if that's second semester, as after we've had a thorough opportunity, myself, human resources, and members of the curriculum and instruction team collectively to really review the job descriptions and make any adjustments that will ensure us that the individuals who get hired for any of these positions will be highly qualified and meet the needs of our scholars and our faculty. I would ask that the board approve the amended staffing policy with the position of the technology resource specialist being filled once we've readjusted the job description and go in place as soon as possible. And that the others, the instructional technology coach, the math coordinator, and the science coordinator be positions for the ensuing 2022-2023 school year.
We will then therefore move to item C in our agenda, which is authorized representation for the special administrative board.
Yes, Madam President, we need to authorize Dr. Jorlyn Pruitt Adams as our authorized representative since she is now our acting superintendent. And I believe it's on the agenda tonight for approval.
Thank you. That being said, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda item?
So moved.
Second.
Have a second. Already second, okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We will now go to our items for action. The first item for action is December 2021 COVID-19 protocols for scholars and staff. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item B, 2021-2022 COVID training. Wait a minute. Okay, COVID training and stipend for all employees. May I have a motion?
So moved. With the
Second.
stipulation, Dr. Avant Elliott mentioned to the change in the resolution.
I would like to make a amendment. I move that the resolution be amended to include specifications around the resonated staff. And then, do we need to address the retirement or no? Dr. Beckler, the retirees.
Are we still on item B?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Both of those.
You mentioned it previously, and I was just saying that that should be included, what you
Okay.
mentioned previously.
Okay, so that's my amendment, is that the resolution be amended to include specifics around the retired and resigned staff.
Right. Second. Well, I motioned, so I can't second also.
Second.
Ready, second, thank you. Mayor Jones, second, thank you. Item C, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Item C, the 2021-2022 staffing plan adjustment.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item D, authorized representative for the special administrative board.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to request a motion for adjournment.
So move with a happy holiday to all.
Second.
Second.
Happy holidays to everyone. Looking forward to speaking to you tomorrow.
All right, have a happy holiday.
All in
Happy
favor?
holidays.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.